Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Falsa, and let's talk some Warpets. Welcome back to Budget Builds. So a reviewer writes me, and he's a low spender and the winter is upon us KVK, and he's not a Cav main, but his alliance has a number of strong Cav players who have the army group talent here, and he'd like to contribute as best he can to these army groups. The only Cav heroes he has developed at all are the G1 Cav, so that's Emerus, that's Bakshi, and that's Alistair. And he's wondering how he can best support those army Cav groups with the heroes he has. Well, let's start with some good news. Even with the G4 Cav out, Emerus and Bakshi are still perfectly viable in the current meta. Alistair is... let's actually not be using Alistair if we can avoid it, but Emerus and Bakshi, they're still good. In fact, if you can pick up the Spring Blades, it's still one of the more powerful Cav artifacts in the game. And while it's not available from the Gold Key artifact chest, you can pick it up from the end of season Battle Pass rewards. Look, I'm not telling anyone whether they should spend money on a game like this, but if you are a spender, the season pass is among the highest values out there available to you. Okay, so we're going to use Emerus and Bakshi. What pet should we use? Well, the obvious choice is the Golden Rock, but let's go through the other options just to make sure. Well, the other Cav pets start with the Berserk Phaedrake. It's really designed for Ferondal, and needs your march to inflict heavy debuffs, preferably the cowardice debuff, but at least some debuffs on the enemy. Emerus and Bakshi don't do that. The Berserk's a no-go. Our next thing we should think about is the Blade Manticore. And the Blade Manticore really wants your Legion to do multi-target AoE damage with its Rage skill. Emerus and Bakshi's Rage skill, they're all single-target. And for a single-target damage, the Golden Rock substantially outperforms the Blade Manticore, so I think this is a bad choice. Finally, we have the Auric Warhound for Cav pets. The Auric wants your legions to get straight rage. Now, if you look at Emerus and Bakshi, they both get the Passion buff. The Passion buff gives you extra rage generation. That's not good enough for the Auric. The Auric needs you to get actual rage, not a buff that gives you more rage. Now, if you do have Emerus Awakened, and I wouldn't necessarily expect a free-to-play low spender to have Emerus Awakened by this point, his Awakened still can give him straight range, and that will trigger the Auric skill talent condition. But this is pretty conditional, and it's going to trigger the level of frequency that you need to take full advantage of the Auric. Really only Nea does that. I think the Auric's a no-go as well. Alright, any other pets worth considering? Well, the Moonbear can be a decent choice if you have it totally built out. A lot of power players have really strong Moonbears that they primarily use for their rally garrison marches. But, like, this is a low spender, he's not going to have a cracked out Moonbear. And if you're not going all in on a Moonbear, certainly don't start one to use with an Emerus Bakshi march. And then we come to the Sand Lizard. Hey, the Sand Lizard can work. It's going to heal your legion, it'll heal other legions in the army group. Not a ton, but anything helps, right? If you've already got a decent Sand Lizard built out, and don't want to think about this anymore, a Sand Lizard is an okay answer. But the best answer is where we started, the Golden Rock. So let's remind ourselves what the Golden Rock does. When its talent skill goes off, it checks if your legion has passion. If your legion already has passion, it does damage to the enemy legion. That's really what you want. If your legion doesn't have the passion buff, it gives you a very weak version of the buff, plus 5% rage gain for 5 seconds. Okay, now the strongest build for this pet is to go to the pet damage route, and you can see a lot of those skills down here. Skills like Fatal Bite, Blood Roar, etc. That build is very strong, but it's super expensive, and it's not worth going that route if you're a low spender. We're going to go to the Hero Enhancement build. We should remind ourselves what our heroes are trying to do. With Emerus and Bakshi, it's actually pretty straightforward. Emerus and Bakshi want to charge in, get an instant rage cycle off, and do heavy rage skill damage. To the extent the fight continues, they're about quickly rebuilding their rage bar up, with the passion buff and their talents, and doing rage skill repeatedly to the enemy legion. Now, Bakshi does have some more diverse skills that are more defensive, but don't be fooled, we want to maximize our hero's rage skill damage. Okay, so how do we best do that on a short budget? The Amber skill for the Golden Rock, Advanced Exuberance, it just gives straight damage to our talent skill. It's a fine skill on a pet damage build, but that's not the route we're talking here. We're going to ignore the Amber skill in this build. The Pet Shop skill, Intense Exuberance, gives us rage and healing whenever we cast the talent skill. That is on plan, but this skill is pretty expensive. It currently costs more than 4K coins on my server for a 1-star copy. For a budget build, I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. We're going to skip the pet shop skill for the Golden Rock. Okay, so where are we going? Well, the first place we're going to start is the hero skill damage package. That's Pursuit Predation, Track and Hunt, and Beast Mark. Pursuit Predation and Track and Hunt, the two sort of similar looking icons, just a different shade of green. These both increase the rate your hero skill damage will crit, whereas Beast Mark will increase the damage they do when they crit. Now, they're all very inexpensive. The 1-stars can usually be picked up right around 120 coins, and even the 2-stars for these skills are not that bad. For example, taking a look, Pursuit Predation, Track and Hunt, Beast Mark, they're all sort of around the 700 coin mark. That's not nothing, but a free-to-play player or a low spender can get that some of the time. Now, you might ask, hey, what's the base crit rate for my hero skill damage? The base rate is 0%. Now, you're not going to get a ton of crit rate from these skills. At the 2-star level, you're probably looking at something like 3 to 3.5% each, depending on your luck and agility. So you're probably looking at maybe 6 to 7% total crit. If Bakshi is your primary, you can increase that through his talent tree as well. Now, these won't be consistent performers for you, but they can provide a nice surprise burst to your damage every now and then. The more consistent package will see you take things like Manic Might, which boosts your Legion's physical attack, Poison Gland, which lets you ignore a portion of the enemy's hit points, and Shield Breaker, which gives you some defensive penetration. If you need some extra movement speed to keep up with your army group, you can think about throwing Wild Agility on there. I also think Outbursts of Rage can be a decent choice. Cav really want to get that instant Rage Bar off the charge, but to the extent that combat lingers on, Cav really wants that Rage skill to go off. They really depend on that for a damage source. And Outburst of Rage can help you get through that rage cycle a turn faster. The problem with these two skills is that they're both agility based, and I think you'll find yourself capped on agility skills with this pet. If you've got an additional skill slot left over, there's not a ton of great options. For defensive options, you can look at something like Terra Barrier, Robust Body, or Bristles. If you're not at all interested in any defensive options, the aggro plan on the 8 slot would have you take Gentle Breeze. And so this is the recommended build for a budget Golden Rock for an Emrys Bakshi merch. If you do have the 8 slot, add a skill to that 8 slot based on whatever attribute you have free and is the highest for your pet. Okay, so let's compare this build to the sample power build for the Golden Rock. Now we'll take the 7 skills we have, and we'll add a random 8 skill just to make it even. And we'll take the sample best build for the Golden Rock. We'll set everything at 2 stars, except for, of course, the Amber skills, which will be 3 stars. Here is the difference in cost between these two builds. And that's it. Now I feature a number of Warpet themed series on this channel, and I'm always looking for more Warpets to feature. Now this could be a pet you're struggling with, and you'd like in-depth advice on how to build it out, or it could be a super strong pet, and you'd like to see it featured in the Doom Pet series. I try to help anyone who needs it with any Warpet related issues. So if you do send something in, please let me know whether you're interested in being featured in one of my videos, or if you're just looking for some quick advice. I'm happy to help either way. I also try to address more general, pet-related questions the community might have. If you have any of those, please let me know in the comments below. I want to thank everyone for stopping by and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed this content or found it helpful, please hit that like and subscribe button. It helps me out a lot. And until next time, stay classy, Belleron.